So good morning, everyone. Today's shiur is Navigating the Siddur, Part 8. And I would like to draw your attention to page 13 in the Siddur, where we will be learning the bracha of Asher Yatzar, that God, you have formed man, you have created man with wisdom, and created him with many openings and cavities. It is obvious and known before the throne of your glory that if will be closed one of them, or if will be opened one of them, it will be impossible to exist even for a short while. Blessed you, Hashem, who heals all flesh and does wonders. This is the first blessing that we say right after Netilat Yadayim. And although this blessing is instituted after going to the bathroom, in other words, every day when we go to the bathroom, go once, twice, 17 times, you say this blessing of the wondrousness of God. However, even though it is instituted for when one goes to the bathroom, however, every morning, regardless, we say this blessing. It's part of the blessings of the Birkat HaShahar, the blessings of the morning. It is a very interesting bracha, because if you have a look at the sequence of the bracha, so we first had Modeh Ani, and we had Netilat Yadayim. We discussed those in previous weeks. And then we have the blessing of Asher Yatzar, the bodily movement, where we thank Hashem for the bodily movement, for the wondrousness of and the glory of the body. And then we go to Elokai Neshama, my God, the soul that you placed within me is pure, and we speak about the Neshama's descent into the body, into the world, and into the body, which is interesting to note, the sequence, because here we're talking about, first we speak about the body, the bodily function and the wondrousness of the body, and then only then we speak about the soul. Why is that? Now, we did speak about the entry of the soul in the body very, very briefly in Modeh Ani. We discussed it then, what it meant. But now we are expanding on this and explaining it much more to a greater degree. But why is it that the concept of one's body takes precedent over that of the soul? The answer to that question will also be understood in a much better way by understanding also the structure of this blessing. If you have a look at the structure of the blessing, usually a full blessing begins with the Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed you are God, and ends with Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed you are God. That is usually a full blessing. Blessings that are smucha lechaverta, which means to say blessings that are connected one to its friend or are associated one from the other. So quite often then you'll find that the blessing will start with a Baruch, or finish with a Baruch, and the next blessing, because it is connected to the previous blessing, will not start with a Baruch, but rather end with a Baruch. It's almost like the introduction has already been made, and it's a continuation. And in fact, that is exactly the case over here. If you have a look in page 13-14, the blessing of Asher Yatzar, of thanking Hashem for the bodily functions and the wondrousness and the glory of the body and how it works, and it's the wisdom by which God instilled in the body. And then the next blessing of that God, you placed within me a soul, doesn't start with Baruch. So again, on page 13 you see that Asher Yatzar, the blessing of Asher Yatzar, starts with Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, blessed you are God, Hashem our God, King of the universe, etc. And then finishes Baruch Atah Hashem Rofeh Chol Basar Umafli La'asot, blessed you Hashem who heals all flesh and does wonders. So we have the normal structure of a blessing. Starts with a Baruch, starts with a blessed you, O God, and ends with blessed you, O God. Then when we speak about the soul, it doesn't start with a Baruch, but it finishes with a Baruch. So the second blessing is Elokai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tehora. My God, the soul that you placed within me is pure. You created it. You formed it, you breathed it within me, and you preserve it within me. And in the future, you will take it away from me, only to restore it to me in the time of the world to come. All the time that the soul is within me, Thankful am I before you, Hashem, my God, and God of my fathers, master of all creation, Lord of all souls. Blessed you, Hashem, who restores souls to dead bodies. We mentioned when a person goes to sleep, the body is akin to a certain degree death, and we expanded upon that at length, so we're not going to do that now. So we thank Hashem for restoring the soul in the body, because even though there's a certain amount of life source in the body when one's asleep, but certainly not enough to function properly the way God wants us to function, and to be able to do things that we need to do. We're not here as dreamers, we're not here just to dream things in this world, but rather to function, to think, and to be able to express our talents. When you're asleep, you don't express your talents. You could be a good orator. Some people, even in their sleep, are good orators. Some people are beautiful painters and all of these different types of things. Mathematicians, whatever it is, geniuses. When they're person asleep, there's no expression to any one of our talents. So it's a certain level of sleep and death. And as we mentioned before, death is associated with impurity, and that's when the body is restored, the impurity is removed, and we wash our hands to remove the impurity that exists on the extremities. Also, this bracha is also associated with the concept and our firm belief in the resurrection of the dead, where God will take our souls back, and the body will return back to the earth as it was. And at the time when the world will come to its fruition and fulfillment, then there will be the concept of the resurrection of the dead, which we will possibly discuss later. So we also are affirming our belief in the resurrection of the dead, both in regards to, in a miniature degree, in regards to waking up in the morning, where God restores our souls, and also in the time to come, where God will, in fact, resurrect the dead. Now, if you notice that the end is a bracha, right? Do you see that on page 15? So we ended off with a bracha, but we didn't start with a bracha. Why this bracha didn't start with a bracha? So the Gemara tells us that the brachot that are called smucha lechaverta. Smucha lechaverta means to say that there are blessings that are connected to its previous blessing. And since the previous blessing had a bracha, ended up with a baruch, that baruch is not only seals the bracha, the beginning of the bracha, but it also is the introduction to the next bracha. So over here on page 14, where we end off with the blessing, blessed you Hashem, who heals all flesh and does wonders, that is the sealing of the previous verses that we said, but also an introduction to the next blessing. Why is that? Because these blessings are interconnected, it doesn't need to start and again with another blessing. The end of the previous is the introduction to the next. Why is that the case? From here we learn the partnership between body and soul and the importance of both of them together. These two brachot, the first bracha, Asher Yatzar, speaks predominantly about the wonders of the body, as we will soon discuss in a minute. And the second bracha speaks about the descent, the soul coming from God from a very lofty level, and descends from level to level in order to be able to do its function. And where and how is its function achieved? Only in a body. The divine will is that there should be a soul in a body. Now we know that the soul is a part of God and is rooted in the highest levels of godliness. Yet the soul, the desire of God, is that the soul descend from its lofty place and come down as enclosed in a body. And it is a unique and special partnership, which we thank God for that partnership. We acknowledge that partnership and the importance of that partnership. And that's why these two brachot come together. The obvious question is, well, why did the blessing over the body come over the blessing of the soul? Is not the soul the predominant, the primary ingredient? Of course, the soul animates and enlivens the body. How is it then that the body, the blessing of the body, or the thankfulness and appreciation to God in reference to the body, comes first and then the soul? To answer that, we follow the sequence of creation. When God created man, what does it say? God created man, he formed his body, dust from the earth. And then it says, Vayipah ba'apav nishmat hayim, and he blew in his nostrils the breath of life. So we see, if we follow the sequence of creation, God first created the body, and then he created the soul. This is a theme that you find very often in Kabbalah and Kabbalistic writings, predominantly in the writing of the Kitvei Arizal, the writing of the Arizal, in Otzrot Hayim and in Etz Hayim, where you see there where he speaks about, even though that there is a level that is more lofty and greater in its level, but it is enclosed or housed in the garment that is lower, so to speak. In other words, first there's a house. What is the most important? The house or man? Man, because the house only is a function for the purposes of man. Yet, you need a house first in order for man to enter in the house, to live in the house, to be protected by the house, etc. So in the writings of the Arizal, it speaks a lot about this, and certainly here we see it right over here. That the body was created first to encase, to hold the house. It's the bait, it's the house of the soul, by which the soul then does the function in partnership with the body. So the house must come first in order for a person to come in, to bring his furniture, bring his family, bring himself into the house. You finish building the house, you come in, the roof is there, you come in. So the body is made first, so to speak. Not because it has preeminence, not because it is the primary, because that's the way it is, that's the way the function it is. When God gave the tablets to Moshe Rabbeinu, so Bezalel created the box, the ark for it, in order to put in the Ten Commandments. What's more important, the box, the case, the ark? When we built the synagogue, we built an ark. And only after we built the ark when we created a place, a safe place, with a fire door and a good place and an honorable place in the synagogue, did we then bring in the Sfarim where we were guarding them and when we were protecting them, and bring them into the Echal, to the Aron HaKodesh as well. The Ten Commandments.
It's basically the vessel for...
The vessel for the garment, right? The garment, for me to put in, the body is in the garment, the person is in the house, etc. That is on one level. But there's also a deeper dimension to that as well. The deeper dimension to that is that God desired that there should be a body. God desired that there be a world, and that is God's external desire. God's internal desire is that there should be a body, and that the soul works through the body. In other words, that godliness is expressed not only through the soul, but also in the lowest level of the physical world, i.e. the body. Which means to say that God willed and desired that there should be a body. If that is the case, Sof Ma'aseh, what's God's first thought? The soul itself is not a created matter, it's a part of God, it's a spark of God. The body is a created matter. But when God, in the scheme of things, desired that there should be a world, desired for godliness to be revealed in a physical world, what did God desire? What was the first thought? The first thought was that there should be a body by which the soul enters the body, works the body, and godliness works through the world and through the body, correct? And therefore, in a way, the first thought, the initial thought, is expressed in the body. And that's why the body is created first, because the body is the tool by which God's will is fulfilled.
But again, if you look at the creation of the world, that's the same sort of
sequence as well. Correct. In order for there to be a world that is ready to fulfill, again, that is again the same principle of which the Kabbalah, in the writings of that Arizal, tell us that the house comes before, so to speak, the person. The house is for the purposes of the person, the body is for the purposes of the soul to work. But here, it's not just that the house serves me. There's an intrinsic quality to the body itself by which the body itself recognizes godliness. Because the body, don't forget, is a created matter. That body itself, which is antithesis of spirituality, which is in fact is a concealment of the soul. To us, reality is the physical world. Food, drink, sleeping, enjoying, bang, this, that. Going around doing physical things. That's our reality as far as the body is concerned. But that the body should wake up and come to an appreciation and realization of godliness, that is a great novel concept. And that is a desire of godliness. So godliness will dwell even in the lowest dimensions of the physical world where godliness is concealed, and all of a sudden godliness becomes revealed there. And not only in the body, but in the body that is very much influenced by our animal tendencies, by our natural desires and inclinations, and even what's called the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. That the animal soul of the evil inclination will come to a realization that it is worth its while to serve the king. Similarly, for example, a bandit was causing havoc in the city, and the king catches him. Let's use a more modern day terminology. Hackers. How many, the FBI and the secret police and whatever, they catch these hackers who are brilliant at hacking computers and doing whatever it is that they do. And they say, come work for us. Or you go to jail. What would you like? And ultimately they realize, you know what? I don't want a life of crime. I've been working in crime. It was the only thing I knew, and that was how I paid the bills, and it was very, very lucrative. And I was hoping I wasn't going to get caught. I got caught. Now you've got two choices. You can either go in jail, or you can either work for the FBI, for the police, or either rectify what you did wrong. So the bandit in the scenario of the king catches a bandit. Now the king doesn't want this bandit because he's low-grade bandit. He wants to get the leader. If he gets the leader, he gets them all. Get rid of all of these, the pests that are interfering in our society, causing havoc in our community, and going to shops and asking for protection money and all of that. I want to catch them already. So the king says to the bandit, listen, I'm keeping you alive. I don't want to really keep you alive. You're not deserving of being keeping you alive. But I have an ulterior purpose. Now you can either work with me, you can work against me, no problem. Stay in jail, do what you want. Or you can work with me. And the guy says, you know what? I've been too long. You think about it. The king tells him, think about it. I'll help you think about it. Today's rations is cut in half. Tomorrow's rations is cut in quarter. Let me help you think about it. So the animal soul can come to realization that, look, of course, instead of fulfilling God's will, of course, that the divine presence is more concealed in the world. And I have enhanced and encouraged and enlivened impurity and darkness in the world. And when the evil inclination comes to this realization through its association with the godly soul, by which the godly soul and the wonderful gift that God gave us, and that is the intellect that can explain it to it, so to speak, it can also come to realization. As the Talmud says, Rav Tvuot Bekoach Shor. Great is the produce that is produced through the power of an ox. In those days, they used to till the earth, break and till the earth. In order to plant seeds, you need to till the earth. The earth has to be broken and soft. If the earth is very hard and coarse, it doesn't release what it needs to release. The seed won't properly take root, and it needs to take root in soft earth. So they used to break the earth. Today we have machines do it. In those days, you didn't have machines. You either put on a yoke on you, all right? You put it on you like this. You never saw those old movies? Those old westerns? Put it like that, and you break it. And how much can you do? How many rows do you think you can do? How many kilometers do you think you can do of that? 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers before your back is broken, and you got to break open the beer. How much can you do? It's only so much you can do. But when you take that harness and that yoke and you put it on an ox, how much can an ox do? How many times can an ox do? More than 100 times maybe. More. You got that ox, you get much more growth, don't you? The power of the ox is very great. The power of the animal soul, its drive, its power, its passion is very great indeed. When we harness that, when you put a yoke onto it, when you discipline it, its power and its growth is great indeed. So that the animal soul and that the body, which works naturally against godliness, which desires physicality and works to conceal godliness, can be a force and an energy of recognition of godliness. And that is the divine will. That is what it says in the Midrash, that the Almighty desired that there should be a dwelling place. In other words, God's presence revealed even in the lowest levels. Where is that lowest level? Even in our animal soul, even in our most basic desires. And if you have a look at the first blessing, what's the first blessing about? First blessing is about going to the bathroom. Here we turn the act of going to the bathroom, the most lowest and basest human bodily function, into a source of recognition of godliness and blessing. To bless Hashem. And like one sage in the Gemara, the story goes that one sage told an individual the greatness of the bodily functions that we have. If you have a balloon, you put the smallest hole in the balloon. What happens to the balloon? What happens to the air in the balloon? If you're in a hot air balloon, you don't want any holes in your hot air balloon, do you? If you were climbing up there, right? So too, our body is like a balloon. Some are bigger balloons, some are smaller balloons, but we all are balloons. And here we have different holes in this balloon of ours that we've got the lungs and we breathe, and yet the air stays in, and what needs to stay in stays in, what needs to go out goes out, and it's phenomenal. Reason to thank Hashem, and we use the bodily functions and we recognize, even in the lowest base bodily functions, godliness, the miracle of God that works within the body, the wisdom of God that is enclosed within the body, and we thank Hashem for it. So that is the divine will. The divine will is that the body that works to conceal godliness, so to speak, will come to recognize godliness. And even in the lowest dimensions of bodily functions, that in itself becomes a mitzvah. That in itself becomes a vehicle and a tool to recognize God's wisdom. Even in the lowest bodily functions. How much more so in man's heart? That man could express his heart in a manner by which he resembles God. That he gives and he enlivens the world and he brings light to the world. What about a person's wisdom? What does man come up with his brain, with his mind? What does he come up with? Medicine and science and all of these different types of things. And how much more so if we harness it to spiritual pursuits, how much we can gain. The Kabbalists and all of the sages that have achieved a wondrous amount of wisdom and knowledge and have explained it and expressed it to others. So that is why that blessing precedes, that blessing comes first. But there has to be a partnership between the two, as we will soon see. Now, there are different nuschaot. Nuschaot in English is a
Version.
there's another better word for it, but there are different versions of this blessing in very slight variations, different variations of this blessing. But our blessing follows the writings of the Arizal, and I want you to count with me the words, how many words there are over here. So let's go page 13 and 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. 45 words exactly. 45 words exactly is the numerical value of Adam, man. Man. The way the body functions. And what is man? What is Adam? What is man? Man is a composite of physical and spiritual. Have a look at the word Adam. Aleph, Dalet, and Mem. Composite of two concepts. Dam is blood, meaning to say, Ki dam hu nefesh, for the blood is the living soul. And the Aleph represents master of the world, the singular and most unique unified entity, which is godliness. Aleph, Alufo shel Olam, master of the world. The very letter Aleph, by the way, if you have a look at the shape of the letter Aleph, is a Vav at an angle, and a Yud on top and a Yud on the bottom, which is the numerical value of 2 Yuds, 10 and 10, equals 20. The Vav is 6, equals 26, which is the name of God. Man is a composite of physical and spiritual, heaven and earth, body and soul. That is man. And here you see that the very words, the amount of words here express what man is. His bodily functions. And now we move on, and the continuation and extension of this blessing, the second part of this blessing is his soul dimension, which we will soon speak about in a minute. But before we do that, I want to just speak a little bit about this blessing, where we bless God, Asher Yatzar et ha'adam bechokhmah, that created man with wisdom. With wisdom. What does that mean with wisdom? We know kulam b'chokhmah asita. You created everything with wisdom, which means to say that everything ultimately comes from the level of God's wisdom. The beginning, we learned before that the 10 emanations, the first emanation is Chokhmah. In the 10 emanations, the first emanation is Chokhmah. In the world of Atzilut, in the highest world, where begins to be the concept of world, where the concepts of worlds are beginning to take form and shape, even if, albeit in a spiritual capacity. But in the order of descent, as we spoke about on previous levels, the first emanation is Chokhmah. Chokhmah means the divine wisdom. Chokhmah is also the word Koach Ma, the unity of two concepts. Koach, two words, Koach Ma. Koach Ma means the potential to be Ma. Ma in Hebrew is humility and nullification. Why? What did Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron say when the Jewish people complained against them? They said, Nahnu ma ki talinu alenu. What are we? We are nothing that you come and complain to us. Don't direct your complaints to us. We're simply the emissaries of God. We're nothing. The greatness of a true scholar and a true wise man in Israel, the leader of Israel, is his level of not just humility. Humility, because we misunderstand what humility. Humility means, I'm a great person, but I'm humble and I'm decent. But I know really how great I am, but I'm humble and I interact with people and I'm a really nice guy and a humble person. That's not what humility is in Judaism. Humility means you are totally nullified before God. You don't feel your existence, your entity at all before God. That's what true humility is. Those souls who are on that level of humility are attached to the highest level, what's called the world of Atzilut, and on particularly the level of Chokhmah, of the divine wisdom. So the concept of Ma, of what? Chokhmah is the ability to nullify ourselves, self-effacement, and unity with God. The more nullification there is, the more unity with God. The less nullification, the less unity with God. In other words, the more I feel myself, the less it's possible for me to feel God. The less I feel my entity, the more I'm able to feel the true entity, the life source of everything, and that is godliness. What is the numerical value of Ma? Ma is 45. Very good. Which is the numerical value of Adam, man. The essence of man is, as we said on many occasions, and is the essence of what prayer is all about, transcendence. Nullify oneself before God, becoming one with God. True love is when you become one with someone or something that you love, correct? You love someone, it's when you become one with them. The word ahava in Hebrew is a numerical value for love, the numerical value of 13. The word ehad, which means one, to become one, the numerical value of ehad is 13, becoming one. Love someone is when you become one. You truly love God, you're one with God. And that is the ability of man. God endowed man, did not just create man with wisdom. Wow, if we look at the way the body works and how everything works in sync, and it's wonderful. It's a miracle. Yes, that's a wise thing. That's with great wisdom God created man. But it's not just that God created man with wisdom. It's that man is rooted in a very lofty level, the level of wisdom. And that level of wisdom is a concept of recognition of godliness and the ability to nullify ourselves and transcend ourselves. And that is what man is all about. And that is, as we said before, the numerical value of Adam, man, 45. And that is the numerical value of Ma, of self-effacement and nullification. That is Ma, which is 45. And that is why there are exactly 45 words here. Take the body, transcend, and then you're able to have a true partnership with the next part of the blessing. And the next part of the blessing, of course, is the concept of the soul. Okay, now let's move on to the next blessing. The next blessing is a very powerful blessing, the middle of page 14. Elokai, my God. Neshama shenatata bi tehora. The soul that you placed within me is pure. What are we saying over here? First of all, notice that this we're talking about this in the singular expression. I'm talking about myself.
Individual.
Sorry?
The individual.
The individual. It's not Elokenu, our God, or Eloken Ishmatenu, the God of all of our souls collectively. Shenatata Banu, that you place within us. It's the individual. Why? Because every individual has the ability to reconnect to God. And to reconnect to that level of purity that the soul comes from. That pristine level of purity that we talked about in Modeh Ani, if you recall. Every one of us can find it within ourselves. So what are we saying here? We're saying, my God, a personal relationship with God. And we can reach a personal relationship with God both through the body and through the soul. We have a personal connection to God because we have a part of us, our soul, that is a part of God. Helek Eloka, as it says in Kabbalistic writings, Helek Eloka, a part of God. And as the Admor HaZaken Balatanya writes, Mamash, literally, it's not figuratively speaking. We have a part of God, literally, part of God within us. Not figuratively speaking. And this is pure. It's unadulterated. It's pure. Never becomes contaminated. It is the body that can dull the shine of the soul, but the soul itself always is pure. And as the Kabbalists teach us, Lo yarda neshama latikun ela aguf. The neshama doesn't need a tikkun, doesn't need a rectification. Tikkun, letaken, means to do, to make, to mold, to shape, is when something is not complete. The taken means to complete. You take a piece of wood and you metaken that piece of wood, you bring it to its completion, to its tikkun, you give it its shape, you give it its function, you make it into a chair, you make it into whatever it is you want. The soul itself is complete. It's a part of God. It is the body that dulls it. Because the body can dull it, it's important for us to recognize that the neshama itself is always pure, is always holy, is unadulterated, cannot be tainted, cannot be affected. No matter what we may get ourselves up to or what level of darkness we may descend to, the soul is always pure. And we can reattach and connect ourselves to this level. As we will soon see, the levels of descent of the soul in a minute that affects our ability to relate to godliness, as we'll soon see in a minute. Now, this soul that is pure, the word tehorah, Kabbalistically speaking, does not only just mean pure. It actually refers to tehira ilah. It refers to a level, which means to say that comes from Atzilut, from the world that is the most powerful, most self-effaced world, the world of Atzilut. The world where godliness reigns supreme, and the existence dimension is totally nullified before God. Doesn't feel any existence. Doesn't feel itself at all. That's where the soul comes from. And every soul and every single one of us has that soul, has that lofty level. We must recognize that we have that. And it's important for us to recognize that. To give us that, to empower us, to give us the ability to be able to continue another day. Because as we mentioned before, it is the body and what the body gets up to, and that the body itself, by its very definition, conceals godliness, causes the dimness of the soul, not for the light of the soul not to shine through. And therefore, now that the soul went up in our sleep and reattached itself to the heavenly spheres, reattached itself to heaven, now again we are emboldened every day. Now again we get that rejuvenation of that level of tehorah, of that purity, that we can never give up on ourselves. Because the soul is always pure. What happened yesterday? Now the soul reattached itself, recharged itself to its spiritual level. We have the power to be able to overcome anything and everything that is in our past. Now let us see how the soul that comes from the world of Atzilut, of the highest of levels, how it descends slowly into this world. It says, the Kabbalists teach us, that the soul descends from level to level in order to prepare it. It's almost like taking boiling water at a very high level, and preparing it for me to drink. I can't drink it if it's boiling hot. So I mix it, I temper it, I mix it, I prepare it myself. I add a little bit of milk, or I add a little bit of cold water, or I cool it. Now in those days, the old grandmother used to cool the tea. Remember they used to cool the tea in order to prepare it that we can drink it nicely, and then we blow on it. So to the soul is very pure and holy, but it needs to go through a preparation, like the fetus goes through 9 months of preparation to become a wholesome and complete body in order to enter the world. It goes through a process of, what was that word again? Gestation. Of a process of gestation in order for the unity of the seed and the egg to ultimately be prepared and go through that level by which until hair and until fingernails are formed and are complete in order to be able to be equipped to function in this world. Because we need eyes, we also need fingernails, we need hair. And some of us. So it goes through a process. And the process works like this. Ata barata. You created it. Which world is that now? So we said Tehora is Atzilut, correct? Ata barata is the next world down, which is the world of Beriah. On that level, we said, the Kabbalists teach us that this world is majority good and a little bit of bad. Now, those who came to my shiur of, I forgot what the shiur was called, the Kabbalistic definition of evil, will know that what is evil? Evil is just simply a lack of revelation of godliness. So how can we call a world, the world of Bria, the world of creation, this heavy, high world, of which only the highest level of spiritual entities exist and were created like fiery angels, how can we call that world at all that has any bad? Because the definition of bad is concealment of godliness or nullification before God. The Kabbalistic definition. And that's why they call this world majority good. Atzilut is all good. What means all good? All good means all nullification before God. There's only godliness. The next world down is a diminishing of the revelation of godliness, and thus there begins to be a little bit of evil. What's evil? What did we say evil is? Concealment. More concealment of godliness. So there is now room and place for a me or an I, so to speak, or a world, even though it's still in higher levels. So the soul now descends into this level, where there begins to feel a little bit more the physical dimension. Not so much. Then, Ata Yatzarta, you formed it. It goes now down, descends now to the next world. By the way, in each world there are myriads of levels, by the way. And each soul is rooted in different worlds. The majority of souls in this world, the regular me and me's in this world, is from the world of Asiyah, the lower levels, and we'll discuss that in a minute. The higher the world where you're rooted from, the more sensitive you are to spirituality, the more you feel spirituality, the less you feel physicality, the less you're drawn to physicality. Now that's not a bad thing, to be rooted in the material world, because ultimately God wants His material world also to be transformed. It's just a different type of service of God, and it's not easy. It's just not easy. Because we like the croissant. The shiur, not so much. What does the rabbi know? Anyway, the croissant, the baker, he did a good job. He knows what he's doing. Then we move to the next level. Ata nafachta bi. You blew it within me. That refers to which world? This world, where it says in the Torah, you created man, dust from the earth, and you breathed a breath of life in it. Means to say this world, the world of Asiyah. So the soul goes through, starts off from the highest levels, and then descends level and level and level in order to prepare it, to give it the garb, to prepare it, to enter the body. Otherwise it's a culture shock. Won't be able to be a unity between these two opposites. Now, having said that, we have to understand that also these three worlds, Barata, Yatzarta, Nafachta, world of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, is also corresponds to Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh. Soul, Neshama really is breath. Ruach is spirit. Nefesh is life source, life soul. And refers to the three dimensions of the soul that are contained within the body. Tehorah, that's a part of the soul, the two parts of the soul, the Haya and Yehida, predominantly the Haya, that is what's called the part of the soul that transcends the body, that doesn't exist in the body, that so to speak is not enclosed within the body. Our soul is still connected to that level, but it's not enclosed within the body. But the other three refers to the nefesh, ruach, and neshama that is enclosed in the body, and that corresponds to intellect, emotion, and action. There are three different types of souls, and each one of them, in general terms, as I said, there are myriad levels within each world. Three different types of souls. The majority of souls are the souls that are associated with the spiritual world of action. There's the physical world of action, and then the spiritual dimension of the physical world of action. And that is the regular souls that exist in this world, especially Ikvita the Mashiach, the souls that are in the last generations before the coming of Mashiach, that are predominantly attracted or associated with action, with doing. And usually such a person is about the ability to do. It doesn't feel so much the greatness of putting on the tefillin, but it's committed to doing it. It's committed to doing the right thing, to doing this, doing that, doing the mitzvot. It's able to relate to physical actions, etc. Then there are souls that are associated with emotions. They feel godliness. They have a passionate love or awe of God. That's the world of Bria, of Yetzirah. And then there are high worlds, Bria, which is the world of Bina. Bina, of understanding, that they relate to God through their intellect, through their wisdom and understanding of godliness. And on that level, they are souls that are much more attuned with godliness, much more nullified to God. So these are the three different types of souls in general terms. But also within us, we have three dimensions of the soul, neshama, ruach, and a nefesh, that engages or enlivens or has a connection to God through intellect, emotions, and action. Even within us, the souls that are even much more connected to the concept of action, even within us, we have those three multiple dimensions. And then it says a very interesting thing, and we'll quickly finish off with this. And you guarded within me. What is the point and function of you guarding it within me? Why guarding it within me? Why does God have to guard it within me? The reason is because the soul is spirituality. And the nature of spirituality is to cleave to spirituality. And to go back to spirituality. The soul doesn't want to be in a body. You want to be in jail? You want to be in a little room 2 by 2 meters? Nobody wants to be in a room 2 by 2 meters. That it's inhibited. Its expression is inhibited. The soul is inhibited by the body. It wants to express, feel, and be nullified by godliness. And here, all of a sudden, the body takes it to places it doesn't want to go. Say things that it doesn't want to say. Do things, look at things that it doesn't want to look and see. So it's inhibited. It's limited by the body. It doesn't want to be here. Wants to be in its source. Included and nullified before God. Included and incorporated in God's love. Be one with God. Lose itself to godliness. But God has a purpose. You guard it within me means to say, God continually infuses the soul with the purpose of why it comes into the body in the first place, and by doing so, this causes an elevation in the soul. Now we will just finish very quickly, and you will, in the future, take it from me, and that is the concept of the resurrection of the dead, by which the whole world will be rectified, and that all of the components of the body will become nullified. Meaning to say that all of the four elements go back to the earth, the fire, and the energy, etc., all become decomposed and become nullified. And that is a process of tikkun, of rectification, of removing the negativity of the world, and then and the influence of it. So in other words, death is a process of life itself, by which the body goes back to its elements and it is rectified. And the world ultimately will also become rectified, and by which a new body, so to speak, a much more spiritual body, will be resurrected through the one little bone that remains that doesn't become disintegrated, and etzem luz, and that the body will be rebuilt from that. Now, people who never knew anything about cloning and DNA and cells, how you can just take a cell and everything is within that one cell. The whole DNA is a person in one cell. Now we can understand the concept of the resurrection of the dead much more greater with the concept of that one loose bone, that their whole DNA is included in that loose bone, and the whole bone will be expanded. Why specifically the loose bone, we don't have time to explain, but there's a great significance, particularly with this bone, and why it's called loose bone, etc., and why the whole body will be built from this bone, etc., not from a hair or from anything else, has great significance. And this is our ultimate leading to the concept of the fulfillment and fruition of the whole world. The beginning of the prayer speaks about how that man comes to the world, and that man has a function individually, but also in the Alenu L'Shabeach, as we will see when we get to there by the grace of God. It will maybe take us a bit of time, but when we get to there, we'll see the Taken Olam B'Malchut Shakai, to rectify the whole world. It's not just about us, but when we are empowered, we understand the source of the body, the power of the body, the wisdom that's contained within the body, and that the soul and how pure it is, and the partnership coupled within them, we will ultimately get to Alenu L'Shabeach, the beginning of the prayer. Now it's Tehilatan V'Sofan V'Tehilatan, the beginning is bound in the end, and the end in the beginning, and that is that understanding and recognizing who I am, what I am, and the power that God empowers me will ultimately reach the end of prayer, and the end of prayer, the Alenu L'Shabeach, speaks about rectifying the whole world, bringing it to its fruition, which is already hinted over here, the concept of the resurrection of the dead when the world will come to its fruition. We will stop here. And continue to